Make sure. Right, there we go. All right. Hey, Indian Creek 8th grade students. Welcome back. It is Monday, April 6th, and I'm here for, unfortunately, another week of quarantine e-learning lessons. I can see that there's a handful of you who have already signed in and are watching. That's awesome. The plan is for this week basically to be as much like last week, where we'll have forms every day, journal prompts. We'll talk about different things that we're doing. I hope everyone had a great weekend and that you're ready to kind of get back into kind of, unfortunately, what is the new normal of social distancing and e-learning and all those types of things. So I thought what we would do is start off with just kind of a review of last week, just to see how well we did, because I would say overall, based on what I've seen in terms of expectations and also from what I'm hearing from some other grade levels, some other teachers, I would say that you all crushed it when it came to making sure that you kept up with your English language arts work, which is awesome. I really, really appreciate that. That shows me that, first of all, that doing these videos and taking this time is helping you all out. And it also just goes to show the work ethic and dedication that all of you have to your education, even though we're not getting to be in school face to face. So thank you so much for that. You know, unfortunately, we have like 3 more weeks of this to go. And so I hope that I can count on everyone continuing that great level of participation. I also hope that everyone had a good day on Friday working on their Genius Hour. You know, I know that was really the first class where I couldn't really check in to see what work you were turning in, just because Genius Hour is a more research-based and kind of a long-term project. But I hope that everybody, when you were first diving into looking up your topic, those of you who knew your topic, that you found some really good stuff and that you have some exciting ideas for what you can do moving forward with that project. So here's a table that I made. I just went through maybe 20 minutes, a half hour ago, looked up all the assignments from last week, counted up who had turned them in on the Google Forms, who had turned things in on Google Classroom. And so these are the numbers that we had. So we had an average of 47 out of the 51 8th graders turning in their journals every single day. That is awesome. If you look on Thursday, we had 50 out of 51. So literally just down to one person who hasn't turned that journal in yet. And I know that things come up, you know, that you might forget one day here and there. But every single day we had at least 42 people turning in their ELA Google form for attendance. So that's great. And I'm sure that there's probably going to be a handful more from Friday who just, you know, maybe you had plans over the weekend or things like that. So that was really, really good to see, averaging a 92% participation percentage. That is excellent. That's so meaningful to me and to the rest of your teachers to know that so many of you are participating in the work that we're assigning. And then if you look over at the assignments, pretty consistent. You know, we had at least 40 out of 51 students turn everything in. At the bottom on Friday for Genius Hour, those are just the number of students who I have finally gotten in contact with in terms of a final essential question for your project. So 41 is just the number of people who have their essential question ready to roll. There are still a handful, obviously, who don't, in which case, like I said on Friday and a couple days last week, just make sure you're checking your email. And I'm sure that there should be something from me that's still wondering just what your essential question is. So even though you might know your topic, I just need that final clarification. All right, so that was how we did last week. Like I said, I'm hoping that I can count on the same participation this week. So now let's look at what we're going to be doing, or just reviewing, I should say, Friday specifically. 42 out of 51 people had submitted their attendance. That's still over 80%. That's great. 41 out of 51 had finalized their Genius Hour topic. And then just a reminder, Friday's journal prompt was the fourth song on your personal soundtrack, and it was a free choice. So just another song that you knew you would want to have on your personal soundtrack for one reason or another. Maybe it's just one that you really like the song, it means something to you, you haven't been able to bring it in yet for one of the prompts. And there were a very wide range of responses and also reasons that people gave. So why don't we move down to see some examples of some of the highlights of what people put. So first hour, these were 5 of the songs that people went with. We had We Made It by Louis Tomlinson, Teenage Dream, Take Me Away, Umbrella, and Paradise City. So wide range, some pop, lots of pop, more contemporary, but then also obviously Guns N' Roses is more of a throwback. So that was first hour. Second hour, we had Ho Hey by the Lumineers. We had some Bon Jovi, Pop Out by Polo G, so some rap, and then One Republic, and then one of my personal favorite throwbacks, Shoop by Salt and Peppa. So again, wide range, different genres, different types of songs, just showing off, everything that makes you you and why you would choose the songs you did for your soundtrack. And then finally, in fourth hour, we had Cinderella by Stephen Curtis Chapman. We had Rapper's Delight by Sugar Hill Gang, another personal favorite of mine. We had some John Mayer, which I knew exactly which student it was who put that in. I'm sure that she knows why I knew that it was her. We had Take On Me by Aha, and then I had to throw in a special shout out to one of our students who was named as one of the songs that his peer would include in his personal soundtrack, and that is DJ Amade's Summertime. So I won't give away who it was who put that in there, but the student did write a very glowing review of that song and of one of our very own students who, if you haven't gone to subscribe yet on YouTube, please make sure that you do that as well. So those were the journal highlights from Friday in terms of the free choice songs for your personal soundtrack. All right, so now here's our class plan for today, Monday, April 6th. Language arts, we're going to talk about a Google form and your journal prompt for today, and then we are going to introduce the story of Animal Farm, which is the one that we're going to be reading over the next couple of weeks. I just sent out maybe like a half hour or so ago in Google Classroom, the actual text of the story. We'll talk about how to use that and then what your actual assignment is for today. Then we'll transition into social studies. We'll talk about the Section 2 quiz from Friday, some of the highlight responses from the current events assignment we had on Friday, and then also introduce our notes for Section 3. All right, so with no more ado, why don't we jump into our journal prompt for today. So prompt number 60, we are all the way up to 60. Obviously, we probably are doing a little bit more journal writing than if we were actually in class, but still, 60 journals, I mean, that's awesome. Hopefully, like I said, we'll get up into the 70s, 80s, maybe even get close to 100, although my fear is that if we were to do that, that would just be because we have more e-learning and social distancing. So hopefully, I'd be all right if we didn't get that high up. But so today, this is track 5 for your personal soundtrack, and we are looking at, I'll be honest, I didn't really know exactly how to title this, so I just called it Your Friendship Song. So in other words, a song that reminds you of your friends or about friendship in general. Most people, I would think, this is the journal where you want to write about a song that is special to either a group of friends that you have or to a specific friendship overall. So, you can pick, maybe you and your best friend have a song that means something to you, or you have a group of friends that you constantly quote this song, or, you've sung this song before. Maybe maybe it's a song that's come up on social media one way or the other, that you always go to with one of your friends. Could be something in terms of, an inside joke or anything like that. So some things that I gave you to think about. Who does this song remind you of? Are there specific memories that fit the song? And is this a song that talks about friendship overall? Or is it something, again, that it's just like, this is a song that reminds me of my friendship with this person. So should be pretty easy. If anything, I almost worry that some people have a hard time picking just one song or just one friend. But that was the mentality of choosing this journal prompt for today. So that's your journal prompt for today. And then once you're done with that, the rest of your language arts assignment is to start reading Animal Farm, which we spent last week doing a whole bunch of prep work. And so now we are ready to actually move into the story. Now, I know for those of you who are looking, I'm sure some of you have scrolled down, seen how long this is. In terms of an actual book size binding, this is not a very long story. It's considered a novella, which is just a way of saying a short novel. This would not be much beyond, I would say, like 100 to 120 pages if it were published in an actual book form. So please don't let the very, very long Google Doc intimidate you or dissuade you from reading. And those of you, if you've checked out the audiobook is only 3 hours long compared to, I would say most audiobooks are at least 7, 8, up to 12 hours in length. So just to give you an idea of how much shorter this story is. So I am trying to keep it approachable, something that I'm hoping most of you will be able to do and participate in while we're here in our e-learning, but also something that it's a really, really good story when you dive into it. It's got a lot of symbolism, and I'm hoping that a lot of you will react to it and enjoy reading it, because I do feel like I usually get pretty good responses about students with this story. All right, so Animal Farm was written by George Orwell in 1945. We've already talked about some of the prep work, how all of the characters are allegories for different people or different groups of people in Russia during the time between World War I and World War II, and how a lot of the events in the book are going to reflect events that happened in history. So this is a story, like I said, about animals on a farm, but if you take that deeper dive into it, then it means obviously so much more than that. So in the text version, obviously you've got your story, and then at certain points, for example, I might have linked something like a picture, here. It's talking about one of the characters who is a middle white boar, and so just for anyone who doesn't know exactly what that animal looks like, there is a link to open up to see, oh, that's the type of animal that we're talking about. There are also links to an audiobook, so you'll see here at the beginning of every chapter, and actually here, I'll zoom in a little bit just to make sure that everybody can see what I'm talking about, because looking on the screen, I think that might not be 100% clear. But so when you open it up, you'll see that at the beginning of every chapter, there is an audiobook link, and it gives you 2 times. And so that is within the audiobook, the beginning of the chapter to the end of the chapter. So for example, chapter 1 is from the beginning, obviously, until about 18 minutes. So when you're reading, maybe not so much today, but in the future, you're on chapter 4, you can say, okay, chapter 4 starts at, 42 minutes and 35 seconds. And then fast forward in the audiobook on YouTube, so you don't have to worry about listening to stuff that you don't need right in that moment. So there is that audiobook link. I will say the gentleman who reads it, he's got I think a pretty entertaining accent. I think he does a pretty good job compared to some of the other audiobooks, but obviously that's up to each of you to decide. And then the other thing I want to draw your attention to is that you'll notice throughout this entire story, there are notations here where you'll see a number. So for example, here after the word scullery, there's a number 1. That is to show you, and I've put these notes in for any word that I think might be confusing or you might need more information about or is important. And so when you come down to the bottom of the page, you'll see that next to number 1, okay, a scullery is a small room that is used for storage or kitchen work, similar to a pantry. And so that's a way where when you're reading your story and there's words that you're confused about, hopefully you'll see that they're notated and you can go down and see exactly what that word or phrase means. So if there are any words or phrases that you're confused about while you're reading, obviously please don't hesitate to email me, let me know, and hopefully I can help you out in terms of just, hey, I wasn't sure what it meant when the story was saying this. I can give you that clarification. Okay, so that is how Animal Farm looks here. That's the different ways that you can use the file that I sent you. And so your assignment today for language arts is to read and or listen to chapter 1. So if you're going the audiobook link, obviously it's 18 minutes. If you're reading it, could probably go a little bit faster depending on obviously how fast a reader you are and how much you have to go back. But that's it for today for your assignment, is just reading. Anything else you're doing with the text, we'll move forward with it tomorrow. We're not going to go super fast through this, but it will make a huge difference, obviously, keeping up with your reading. There will be reading quizzes or responses that I send out where obviously if you haven't read the story, you're going to need to do that to show how much you know and show what you understand of the story. So obviously there's no real way for me to really make sure everyone reads it. I just hope that you do, because like I said, it is a very interesting story, an entertaining story, and one that I think we can have a lot of fun working with. So Animal Farm, chapter 1, that is what I would like for you to read and or listen to for tonight, in addition to completing your journal about friendship. All right, so that's it for language arts. Why don't we transition over into social studies? And so here was the quiz that was assigned last week on Friday, just about section 2 from your notes. You'll notice, if you can see on the screen, we've only had 37 people enter their quiz response yet, so a little bit lower than I was hoping for, but obviously, if you forgot or you didn't have time, I understand the potential dangers of assigning work on a Friday. So if you haven't turned it in yet, just please make sure, go in. It's super easy, and then you'll get your points for doing the quiz here. So, I hope, obviously, that people remembered that Rosa Parks and everything that she did to help set up the Montgomery bus boycott. And then for the protests that occurred in the early civil rights movement, you could talk about the Montgomery bus boycott, you could talk about the sit-ins, or you could even talk about any of the other marches or the freedom riders that were mentioned in that video. All right, so that was the quiz on Friday. Today, because you're just doing notes, there will be an attendance form sent out that's just, again, another yes or no question. So just please make sure to submit that just for us, for record keeping, for your attendance for social studies. All right, please don't forget to do your social studies. I know that when I was looking through the number of people who did their language arts assignments versus social studies, that it was a bigger uptick, people keeping up with language arts. Now, I'm not mad that people are doing their language arts homework, don't misunderstand me, but just please don't forget that social studies is also a class that we're going to be assigning work for, and we want you to make sure that you keep up with, especially because this era, the civil rights era, is one that is so important to the history of our country overall. All right, so that was the quiz for Friday, and then the other assignment you had on Friday was current events, looking at this article from the New York Times, 5 key things in the $2 trillion coronavirus stimulus package. So we'll scroll down here, and I just included some of what I thought were the highlights, some of the different answers or the really strong answers to this current events article. And so we'll go over those now. And then obviously, if you're someone who feels like you need to go back and add more, or if you weren't one of those people who turned it in, please make sure that you turned it in or get it turned in as soon as possible. So first question, what is your overall response to the stimulus package? Do you think that it will be enough to help most or all Americans, and why? Or do you think people should be getting more money? Why or why not? So we had one student who said that I think that the package is a good idea. I think that everyone in the U.S. should get money. not just people who make a certain amount of money. And so they went into the government should give money to all people, not just cutting off, the help at a certain earning amount. So in other words, some of you have probably heard if you make more than $99,000 a year, you don't get any money from the stimulus package. And so the student also thought that instead of just sending out in one lump sum, the government would do better to give a smaller amount, but make it every month so that people don't just get the stimulus check, spend it all in one go, and then have to wait for more money or just not have any more money and then kind of be, as they say, up a creek without a paddle. And then we had another student at the bottom who talked about that they also think the stimulus package is a good idea, but unfortunately, the money will take so long that he, I believe, was hoping that they could find a way for the money to get to people sooner. Because there are so many people who are filing for unemployment. If you haven't been following the news, it's up to now in the last 2 weeks, there have been about 10 million Americans who have filed for unemployment, which is just an unbelievably high number. And then this student also mentioned that they didn't think that it would be enough for all people, and that there should have been more sent to hospitals and more to poorer unemployed families. So one student thinking that all people should have gotten money, there shouldn't be a cutoff. Another who thought that it should have been more focused on kind of lower earning or unemployed families. But both of them did a really nice job explaining why they felt, and they used information from the article to back that up. And then we had question 2 down here. Anything else you think the bill should have put money into, or do you think the bill's already spending too much money? So we had one person who said they thought that this bill was kind of pushing the limit, and they kind of want to cut off, they don't want the government to overdo it. That was more the top one. We had the middle one here thought that there should have been more money that was put into cleaning services to try and help fight the virus in that way. Because obviously, that's why we wash our hands. That's why we're disinfecting everything. We're trying to keep things clean, not allow the virus to continue to live on surfaces or in the air, things like that. So I think that's a totally rational and important step, is obviously making sure that things are able to be cleaned, whether that's supplies or people to do the cleaning. So we had a student who thought there should have been more money put into that. And then we had another student who said there shouldn't be money put into any other areas because this is a health crisis, and that's more where the money should have been. And made the mention that, this sounds like a whole lot of money. $2 trillion is obviously a whole lot of money, but if this is a way to help stop a terrible virus, then we need to spend it. So a wide range of ideas, all of them good, but I just wanted to include some of these examples for all of you if you were struggling, if you hadn't gotten to finish yours yet, so that if you need to go back, unsubmit, and resubmit, if you need to add anything, or if you still need to turn this in, you have that information there for you. All right, so, and then obviously I'm not going to name the students who I took these answers from, but I appreciate not only the ones who I took these answers from, but everybody who did their current events on Friday as well. All right, so then that takes us into today for social studies. And as I said, there's going to be just a one question, yes or no Google form for you to submit for attendance. And then I also sent out the link for part 3 of the Civil Rights Era for the video. And so please just make sure that you watch that and then take your notes here. Part 3 is about presidential action. So we're going to be talking about a couple different American presidents and what they did, or the role that they played in this fight for civil rights. So we'll be talking about President John F. Kennedy and President Lyndon Johnson in this section. So those are your notes for today, and then there will be a short quiz again tomorrow. Tomorrow, obviously, we'll go through the notes, the key, and then in language arts, we'll be talking about some of the stuff from Animal Farm. So journal and language arts, read or listen to chapter 1 for Animal Farm, and then social studies, just double check and make sure you turned in your current events. submit the Google form for attendance, and then you have the link and these notes for part 3, which part 3, I want to say the video is about 8.5 minutes long. So another shorter one. Hopefully it won't take anybody that much time. All right, but then the only other thing that I wanted to include, because I did, actually 2 more things I wanted to include. So in language arts today, in your form for attendance, you might have noticed that I put a bonus question in there just about if anybody did anything fun or interesting over the weekend. Like I said, I think that these videos are a good way for me to be able to stay in touch with all of you, but also hopefully for you all to still be able to stay in touch with each other. And so I just thought, if anybody did anything fun or interesting over the weekend, wanted to share with myself and your classmates, you can put that in there. And I will include some of those highlights in the live stream tomorrow. But then on Friday, I also asked all of you about basically just like a social distancing update. So what have you been up to in your time away from school? What have you been spending your time with? Any surprising things that you're doing, any shows or movies that you're watching, any activities, any food that you've rediscovered your love for. And so I thought that I would go through and just pick one of those categories and highlight that each day this week. It's kind of like a Indian Creek Middle School social distancing update list. So for today, I was going to share with all of you, these were the main activities or the most common activities that I had people write about in that social distancing update in their journal on Friday. So if you haven't turned in your journal on Friday yet, you can still do that, and I will obviously be looking through stuff every day to share on this stream. But so some of the activities people wrote about were, we had long bike rides, and here actually I'm looking at the screen and I just want to make sure everyone can see it. I'll zoom in a little bit. We had going for long bike rides. We had a lot of people talking about practicing different sports, whether that's softball, basketball, people going out for a run, doing push-ups, working out. We had people talk about going roller skating outside. Surprisingly, we did have a couple different students mention that they were reading more, which obviously I'm always a fan of. We did have a couple different people talking about the amount of cleaning that they were doing. So, I mean, that's obviously something that is helpful to fight the virus, but also, we've been doing some cleaning around here, and it's kind of like, if you're not going to do it now, then when are you going to get it done? We had people talking about going out longboarding, babysitting, and then going out for walks. So I would just say for myself, I try and go for a walk every day in the morning if I can before things get too busy. And then, as I mentioned on Friday, I've been doing a lot of reading, doing some puzzles, and then, obviously, I'll admit we have been watching some things on Netflix as well. So that's just our daily social distancing update. That's what some of your classmates are doing while we are spending our time apart here in our social distancing. So otherwise, thank you so much for everyone who is tuned in. Let me look over, see. All right, Isaiah was wondering when we go back to school. Yes, Emily, you are correct. Hopefully it is May 1st. I'm keeping my fingers crossed because, I know I've said it before, but I really do miss seeing all of you in class. It just isn't the same. Obviously, me talking to my Chromebook versus getting to interact with all of you, both in terms of as a teacher, but also getting to see you all grow as people. We don't get to have those conversations either. So definitely hoping that May 1st is the day that's back. And then Isaiah also asked, did I have to type this? No, I didn't have to type out the story, Isaiah. I had it in a PDF. I was able to copy and paste it and format it so that we could use it. But, I appreciate looking out for me, but no, I didn't have to do all that typing. But George Orwell did, because he was the one who had to, write the story. But otherwise, same as always, please let me know if you have any questions. Shoot me an email, and I will do my best to respond as quickly as I can, whether it's relating to work here, if you're working on Genius Hour, anything else, and then obviously not only language arts, but social studies too. All right. But I think that'll do it for me today. I'll be back again tomorrow with another live stream. But until then, this has been Professor Blazek, and I will see you next time.